This is Join Us in France, episode 213. Bonjour, I'm Annie, and Join Us in France is the podcast where we talk about France, its many quirks, its history, its language, and of course, itineraries and destinations in France you want to learn about because hopefully you'll be visiting soon. On today's episode, 10 tips for people who are traveling to Europe or France for the first time. I was in Germany and England recently and noticed a few things that would surprise anyone who hasn't visited Europe before. Or maybe you've been, but it's been a long time. Size of the hotel room, power converter, plug adapters, that sort of detailed stuff that can become a pain if you don't know about it in advance. I'll also answer a listener question about cutting in line in France. Join Us in France is brought to you by Patreon supporters and Addicted to France, the small group tour company for people who want to enjoy France to the fullest with Elise and myself. Check out our upcoming tour in the Dordogne in September 2019 on addictedtofrance.com. This tour is only going to be up for sale for a few more weeks. If you'd like to join Elise and I, make your move soon. So, first time in Europe. Number 1, hotel beds will not have a top sheet. Most hotels provide you with a duvet or comforter, but no separate top sheet. It used to be that beds were made with a bottom sheet, a top sheet, blankets, and a decorative bedspread. Most hotels don't make beds that way anymore. And instead, they give you a comforter wrapped in a duvet cover. But sometimes it's too warm to sleep under the comforter, but you still want something light to cover you. So if you're staying at a hotel that's, 3 stars and up, they'll probably be able to give you a top sheet. But some hotels don't even have those anymore. This isn't just in France, it's true in England and in Germany also, where I've been to hotels recently. So if that matters to you, bring your own top sheet. Number 2, there will be no toiletries in budget hotels, not even a stick of soap. Even 3 stars hotel sometimes provide next to nothing as far as toiletries are concerned. So you might want to bring some. Nothing like finally getting into your hotel room, using the bathroom, and realizing that you can't wash your hands properly because there is no soap anywhere. And even if you're just traveling with a carry-on, get the little travel sites toiletries. You'll be glad you did. Number 3, no washcloth in hotels. This is really distressing to me. I need a washcloth in the shower. If you do too, bring one. I do this all the time now. In France, we used to have these washcloths that looked like an oversized mitten. I haven't seen one of those in a hotel in years. In American hotels, they still give you a tiny towel that you can use to wash. You won't find that in a hotel in France. So, or England or Germany for that matter. So bring one if that matters to you. Number 4, hotel rooms in large cities are small. Sometimes so tiny that you can't walk around the bed. You know what French people say when they go to America? They say, everything is so big in America, or everything is so big in America. The cars are big, the streets are wide, the hotel rooms are big, the bathrooms are big. It just feels like everything is oversized. Even in a city like New York City, things are bigger than they are in Paris. When you get to France, dear visitor from North America, everything will look small to you. Shower stalls are small. Beds are small. Chairs are small. When you look at hotels, if you decide to book one of the cheapest ones, be sure everything in there will be small because they are packing as many rooms as possible in a small space. If you spend more, you'll get wider halls and, maybe wider staircases, bigger bathrooms, etc. When you tour America, say you're making a stop in Tennessee or somewhere like that, a basic room comes standard with 2 queen beds or maybe a king bed with a sitting area. I have never seen that anywhere in Europe with a basic room. So if you're not paying a lot for your room, be assured it's going to be small. Number 5. Hotel rooms in Europe have some oddities. In England, there's usually a switch that turns on the plugs. You plug in your iPhone and it doesn't charge. That's because you need to turn on the plug using the switch that's right next to it. In France, you often need to insert some sort of card into a card reader. That's usually your magnetic card for the door. Although it doesn't have to be that. You can put any old piece of paper in there, it'll work. But they do that so that when you leave the room, you have to take your card with you so you can get in again. And that will turn off anything electrical. So I've had people tell me, I couldn't figure out why I couldn't turn on the light. Well, that's why, because you have to find the card reader and put your card in there. That's because power is really expensive in France. And so, they just need to make sure that you're not leaving things on when you leave the room. Number 6. In France, Italy, and Spain, you can usually open your hotel room windows for ventilation. That means that there will not necessarily be any mechanical ventilation. So open your windows, folks. Number 7, even if your hotel room has carpet, it will not be plush. Right or wrong, Europeans think that carpets are full of germs. You'll find tile, wood, and linoleum a lot more often than carpet. They do some short commercial carpet in England, but usually not in France. So bring slippers or comfortable socks to walk around the room. I don't know. Number 8, there will be security searches everywhere you go. Even to enter a cathedral or a big library or a museum, anywhere that draws a lot of people, so travel light. There's even people searching bags at the entrance of the Galeries Lafayette in Paris, department stores. So yeah, travel light. Number 9, you need to understand the difference between a power converter and a plug adapter. The converter is used to convert power from 110 to 220 in Europe. Depending on what electrical stuff you bring to Europe, you may or may not need a power converter. For example, laptops, smartphones, tablets, camera chargers typically will take any power. Look at your charger. You may need to look at it with a magnifying glass to see, but if it says 110-240, if that's the case, you're good to go. You will not need a power converter. But if it says 110, then you need a power converter or you will burn your charger to a crisp. Number 10, what you will need for sure is a travel plug adapter because every country in Europe has different shaped plugs. So the travel plug adapter is the plastic thingy. Well, it's plastic and metal, and it will turn your US plug into a plug that will fit into a French plug or a British plug or Italian plug or whatever. British people have very different plugs than the rest of Europe. Between Germany, France, Spain, and Italy, it's pretty similar, but not exactly the same. So it's best for you to get an international adapter, and you can find those. There's a bazillion of them on Amazon, and they don't cost very much. I recommend you get one for each family member, so you're not all fighting over the one plug that fits your US plugs. And also, some of these adapters are also power converters. So take a look at what you plan on bringing to know whether you need the power conversion or not. If you don't, then you don't need that. It's heavier and it's more finicky. So if you don't need it, don't get that. Thank you, Lighton Smith, for pledging to support the show on Patreon this week. And my thanks also to all the other patrons who support the show month after month. Thank you so much for giving back. To support the show on Patreon, go to patreon.com/join us, Patreon. And join us, no spaces or dashes. I just released a new installment of the French History Brief today, and that's available to anybody who pledges $5 or more. And it's about, it's called a snapshot of Paris in the year 1000. And it's just 10 minutes long, but it's really, I love to talk about France in the Middle Ages. So I hope you do too, and I've gotten positive reports so far. I'm at 143 patrons this week, so one more than last week. It's progress. It's slow progress, but it's progress. Another Patreon reward will come out before the end of the month, I hope. And it's going to be the lunch break French, where it's a short bit that I write in both English and French, and I read it in normal, fast speed French. For my personal update, I must say that Thanksgiving preparations took a lot of my time this week because Thanksgiving is the one holiday that I host in my home every year. I used to throw a Halloween party every year, but I don't do that anymore because my daughter is 20. She hangs out with her friends for Halloween. My sister-in-law always hosts the whole family for Christmas, so we go there. So what's left for me? Thanksgiving. And Thanksgiving is not a holiday French people celebrate, but you know what? When I tell my French family that we're having a big meal, we're going to celebrate and sing and have a good time, they want it. So they were very happy to adopt Thanksgiving as a new family tradition the last 15 years that I moved back to France. I'm going to spend a few days in Paris next week. Just for me, this is not a tour. My husband bought us tickets to go see Sir Paul McCartney at La Défense. It's a concert at La Défense next week. I love Paul McCartney, so I really look forward to that. Then our daughter has to renew her American passport in person in Paris because this will be her first 10-year passport, and that's a rule they have. So when you go from a 5-year kid passport to an adult passport, you have to show up at the American consulate. So we're going to do that as well. And then I'll stay a few days longer to visit a few more places in Paris that I haven't seen yet. And I'll also test a few restaurants with my cousins who reside in Paris. So it'll be fun. I'm hoping it's not going to be too wet, but you never know. November, early December in Paris, it could be wet and cold. We'll see. A listener sent in a question that I wanted to answer on the show. She wrote, Annie, in one of your podcasts, you mentioned that French people are used to cut in lines. If that happens to us, what phrases should we say to the person who does it and stop it from happening? Something like, excuse me, I was here first. Merci, Annie. Well, French people don't elbow one another out of the way, generally speaking, but it is true that someone may cut in line in front of you. What should you say? Nothing. Some people cut in line because they are jerks. But if French people cut in line in front of you, it's most likely because they misread your intentions. You're leaving too much space between you and the person in front of you, and so other people don't realize you're in line. Personal space is a lot bigger in North America than in France. I told you that everything is smaller in France, right? That includes personal space. And it's not unusual for French people who are lining up to be just a few inches from one another. And if you're used to keeping a distance of 2 or 3 feet between you and the person in front of you, they may misunderstand your intentions and go right in front of you because they think you're keeping so much distance, you must not be in the line. Are some people willingly misreading the situation? Maybe they are. But all you have to do is step closer to the person in front of you and it won't happen again. I got so used to American personal space that when I first moved home to France, I often had people step in front of me in line. Sometimes I wanted to say, what else would I be doing here if I'm not in line? But it was just a body language misunderstanding. And even though I speak French fluently, since I am French, I kept my mouth shut. And that was probably the right decision. So don't say anything. Step closer to the person in front of you. And that will signal that you are in line. And when you do that, nobody will cut in line in front of you unless they're a jerk. But you don't want to pick a fight with a jerk if you don't speak French, do you? There was a conversation on the Join Us in France closed group on Facebook this week that I thought was particularly interesting. Rachel was reporting that they had dinner on Thanksgiving night at a place called La Jacobine. I've never been there. And it was full of Americans. And she reported that the food was good, but she might not go back because the experience lacked Frenchness. So I love this conversation because this is something I wonder about. Should I or should I not give specific recommendations? My take so far has been that it's better to teach you how to fish for a great restaurant than to give you the address and thereby giving you the fish. If you listen to the podcast, you'll get how I and other French people choose our restaurants, right? And I won't have to give you the address. But I must admit that if I was going to a city that I've never been to before, I would appreciate, specific recommendations. So what do you think, listeners? Do you look to me for specific recommendations, or should I keep it general and explain, this is how I choose a restaurant. Now you go do it. I'd love to read your thoughts on joinusinfrance.com/213 or by calling 1-801-806-1015, and then I will play your response on the show. So like I just said, the show notes and the comments for this episode are on joinusinfrance.com/213. And if you liked this episode, you should also check out joinusinfrance.com. Then click on the interest tab and then first time in Paris. There are lots of very good episodes that will help you if it's your first trip to Paris coming up soon. Join Us in France needs your support. If these episodes are as good as a guidebook or maybe better, visit joinusinfrance.com/support and demonstrate that, yes, this podcast is worth a few dollars to you. You can hear Join Us in France anywhere you get your podcasts. And if you feel inclined to recommend the podcast to somebody who doesn't normally listen to podcasts, well, tell them that they can listen either on the website, joinusinfrance.com, or on Pandora, or on Spotify, Apple iTunes. Well, that's mostly for people who listen to podcasts, but also smart speakers, so the Google Home or the Amazon A person or the Siri thing. You could talk to them and tell them, play the Join Us in France travel podcast. And it will. So it's getting really easy to listen to podcasts. As far as social media is concerned, we are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, and also YouTube. So we're pretty easy to find. And if you want to recognize other show listeners while visiting Paris, check out our t-shirts and tote bags and cups and all of that. Look for the green button on joinusinfrance.com. To connect with me, email Annie@joinusinfrance.com or leave a message at 1-801-806-1015. You can also ask to join the Join Us in France closed group on Facebook, but when you do, answer the questions. And if you add a friend of yours, tell them to answer the questions. I will not let anybody in who has not answered all the questions to my satisfaction. Have a great week of trip planning, and I will talk to you next Sunday from Paris. Au revoir. The Join Us in France Travel Podcast is written and produced by Annie Sargent and copyright 2018 by Addicted to France. It is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license.